I just wanted to have a bit of a rant about Etymotic headphones, or earphones rather. Etymotic Research I think they're an American company, and they're one of the industry leaders in noise isolating earphones. I often find myself needing noise isolating earphones because I go out in noisy areas quite a lot. I want them partly to block out the noise and partly for good sound quality listening to music. Back in the late 2000s, Etymotic did a product called the ER6i. Now I think that was one of their first sort of consumer aimed products. It was aimed at people like iPod users. In my case, I use Walkmans, but I think the aim was for iPod users who would just use the standard Apple earbuds or Sony or whatever brand you had, just the standard ones with no real proper noise isolation. Now previously they'd made ones for professional setups, often like stage monitoring, studio work, things like that, and they fetch a very hefty price tag. An average Walkman or iPod user wouldn't want to pay the hefty price tag for studio quality monitors, and you probably wouldn't want studio type equipment when you're out and about walking or running or on your bike or whatever. So the ER6i was quite a good product for people like me, and that was the first one I had. Having previously used some Sennheiser earphones which had some noise isolation but not much isolation, these Etymotic ones were very good. Unfortunately they can be prone to breaking. With the ER6i, I think the first thing that failed was the stereo headphone jack. When you're using something in a pocket, these are quite prone to breaking, so I had to replace that. Next thing that failed was the wires that go into the earphones. They had a tendency to break. Now fortunately with the 6i you could just about dismantle the earphones and snip the bad bit of wire off and strip it and solder a new bit on, so that was to an extent repairable. There's only so many times you can do that. I mean, mine actually failed on both earphones several times, and there's only so many times you can repair that before they basically become knackered. But the other problem that you'd get is earwax. Now with most of the Etymotic ones have little replaceable filters, and basically it's a little piece of plastic with something resembling paper on that pushes into the end of the earphone, and that stops things like earwax from accumulating in the earphone. And what will happen is all of a sudden you'll find the audio goes out in one ear, or it'll be very faint, and that usually means that the filter has got clogged up and needs to be changed. So with the 6i and most of their products you could just put a little tool in, and in fact I've got one, I'll show you. You put a little tool in and it pulls it out, and then you can just pop a new filter in. Now with the 6i's that I had, I used up over a number of years, I used up all the filters that I had. And eventually when I'd used up all the filters, I just left the filters out. They're pretty much at the end of the useful life anyway, owing to the number of repairs, so I wasn't too bothered about using them without a filter. But eventually they got to the end of the useful life, and by the time I needed to replace them, they didn't make the 6i anymore. They made this one, which I think I'm losing track of the product numbers, but this one is the I think it's the MC5, or it might be the MC4. Yeah, these ones are the MC5. They're a bit cheaper than the ER6i, and they're a different design. The ER6i were more rectangular and the cable just came out of the bottom, whereas on these it's more of an L shape, which is a bit more traditional for earphones. These still work, but I have had to repair them. You can see on both of these they've both got glue on them. This side has a lot more than this one. In fact, this one has actually come apart. I've had to replace a bit of the cable in this one because it broke. That's why one of them is actually longer than the other. I think this one's been fine, and this one I've had to repair, hence the shorter cable. Now these ones actually work fine, but a while back, about a couple of years ago, I decided to get some new ones. These ones here are the MK5, which is a newer model, and I quite like the look of these because the body of them is actually quite a bit smaller. The same sort of shape, but this body of them is smaller than the MC one, and that's actually noticeable when you put it in your ear. You do notice the fact that this is a lot smaller, and this is in my case at least, this is a much better fit for my ears. Of course, these haven't lasted quite as well as I would have hoped. A couple of months ago, the headphone jack plug broke, so I had to replace the jack, of course, as you do. This particular jack that I'm using is a Nutric jack. I highly recommend these Nutric ones. They're a bit expensive, a few pounds each, but they're very high quality and very nice to actually assemble and solder onto, so they're actually very good. Not much longer after I changed this, did one of the earphones stop working, or at least it went very temperamental. I was out and about, I noticed it was one side was very quiet, and it seemed to be getting quieter, to the point where you couldn't hear it at all. And then a few days later I tried them again, and it was more or less okay to start with, but one was a bit quieter, but again it gradually got quieter throughout the morning. Anyway, I was wondering what was wrong with them. I did check the connection in the plug and that was fine, but that's not really doesn't really sound like the issue. So I thought, well, it actually sounds like the other ones do when they get too much earwax in them. But the trouble with these is these don't have the filters, so I can't simply pull the filter out and replace it with another one. So what do I do about this? I can't take a filter out. I don't really know what I can do with them. They're basically useless now, so unless somehow I can open them up and clean them. I mean, I'm pleased to say I've not yet had to open these up to repair the cables. They have lasted fine, but yeah, without the filters, they're just not going to last very long. This one, the MC5, does have the filters. I'm not sure if I've replaced them yet, but if I haven't, they do sound absolutely fine. So anyway, I think I've pretty much had to abandon this MK one, and I've had to go back to the old MC5, which was broken. And of course, I took this out this morning, and now the plug on this has stopped working properly. So I'm going to have to chop this plug off and put a new plug on these. Whether these will last a long time, I don't know, because again, they're held together with super glue, and they've already been repaired at least once. So whether they'll last, well, I don't know. Now the issue with Etymotic's headphones is a lot of them are very expensive, and some of the more expensive ones do have replaceable cables, so that's probably a much better design. Someone like me is limited by what I can afford, and a lot of the more expensive ones that they do, as I've said, are aimed more at musicians and studio work and stage monitors and things like that, which are probably not what you would want when you're out on a bicycle or a motorbike, or walking through a busy shopping centre, or anywhere that's perhaps a far more tough environment. But of course, you don't really. Of course, these ones are still expensive enough that you don't want them to break. I mean, I've got some. I've got some old Sennheiser ones here. I think these are a CX300 maybe. I don't really use them, but it's a long time since I bought them. But you know, these sorts of things are a heck of a lot cheaper. I mean, these are probably £30 at the absolute most. These Etymotic ones are 50 at least. Now it is possible if I can get them untangled. One of the issues with earphones is they're very easy to get tangled up. These Sennheiser ones don't offer a very good level of noise isolation. The sound quality is actually fine for what I want, but they only have these little flimsy rubber bits. Now you can get third-party ones. If you compare the Sennheiser one to this three-flanged Etymotic one, you can see this Etymotic one will give you a much better isolation. You can get third-party ones. I've not tried any. I may well see if I can get some. People have recommended to me Comply Foam. They make ones for just about every earphone on the market, including these Sennheiser ones, and for the Etymotic ones as well. I've been wanting to try those for years. I've never got around to buying any, and the three-flange Etymotic ones actually work perfectly well for my use. So it looks like for now I might be a little bit stuck. I've got what looks like a dead pair of headphones. I think they were a good £50 at least a couple of years ago, and I'm probably going to have to replace them again. I don't think I would get Etymotic style ones that don't have the filters, because ultimately they do get clogged up basically. These MC5, I think I'll use these and replace the plug and try and glue them back together, and hopefully they'll last me until I can get some new ones. I might see about getting some new tips for the Sennheiser ones and seeing what I can do. There are quite a lot of different styles of noise isolating earphones these days. So if anyone has any recommendations as to or wants to tell me what you use, please do let me know. Of course, what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me. But if anyone wants to let me know what you use, please do leave a comment. And if you're wondering what headphones I use at home, it's a Sennheiser HD555, which have no noise isolation at all. But you don't really need that at home anyway.